Tayyib, is there a YouTube link you guys have we can share?
Yeah. We're sharing it right now. All right, we're live.
We're live.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa wala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Salam.
Dear brothers, sisters, viewers, sorry for the technical issues. We're just trying to get a hang of this. We're going live again, second time, and today we've got a few brothers that specialize in the field of tashayyu and then refuting the shubahat of the Shias and the Shia polemics. We've got a few brothers. Can you guys hear me? Or
yeah, and I checked the YouTube. The thing working.
I can.
Yeah,
hear.
it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just one request. One request from whoever's participating. Please mute your phones. Hassan, mute your phone.
Yeah.
Whatever's TSN, please mute your phone. Anybody mute your phone if you are not talking.
Chief وساوي كده. Where do I?
Yeah, muted.
Mute. How do I do this? Do I click here? Or?
Yeah, click on your image, or and you should get like a symbol of a microphone and another symbol of a camera. Each one deactivates one of the two features.
When I click on my image, bro, my image appears on the whole screen. That's all that happens.
All right, خلاص, if it's not doing it, it's okay. We can move forward.
Yeah,
I'll mute you guys. It's fine. I can handle that.
All right.
But it's not necessary.
Okay,
Anyways, yalla, let's start. So basically, oh wait a second. Okay.
I like your banner, Farid. TSN, very nice, beautiful.
Habibi. I don't know who designed it, so whoever did. You did? I don't know.
Oh, the man behind Anti-Majus, may Allah bless him.
Oh yeah? Really?
Yeah. You don't know?
I had no idea. I had no idea who designed it.
May Allah bless him. May Allah preserve him. Yes.
I mean,
so basically, the topic of the discussion today is astrology. It's actually a couple of things, and then we're going to go off on a random tangent, of course. But the main two topics are Adaalat al-Sahaabah, number one. Number two is the topic of the killers of Uthman, or specifically Abdurrahman bin Udays al-Balawi and his involvement in Maqtal Uthman. So, of course, we're doing this as a reaction, to be honest, as a reaction to Zayn's video in which he's talking to Brother Rayhan, I believe. His name is Brother Rayhan. And it was an interesting discussion. It didn't go, it didn't last too long. It wasn't as useful. It wasn't as educational as one would expect a topic like that to be. However, one should still discuss and then look into these issues, since it's a very controversial topic, especially Maqtal Uthman, and definitely that's Sahaba.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
So that's a bit of a background.
Mm-hmm. So first thing we do, you're gonna comment on this video of this coward who discussed with some nobody who doesn't know who Suyuti is, some miskin, or what are you gonna do? Is that what I understood correctly?
Well, I could briefly. So who here checked out the video? I'm just curious.
I did. I skipped through most of it. I watched most parts of it.
Yeah. But Suleiman, did you check it out?
No, wallah, unfortunately, I didn't get the pleasure. No.
Okay, Honey?
No, not really.
Busmaid?
Yeah, I did watch some of it. Yeah.
Okay, well, what are your thoughts? What are your reactions on that?
Obviously, the brother Rehan, may Allah preserve him, bless him. Obviously, Shiism is not really his thing, but considering that, I wouldn't say that he done too bad. But I would advise him for the future not to sit with people like this in a gathering where you're sitting down on the couch laughing and shaking hands, drinking biscuits and tea and stuff like this, because obviously these are people that are zanadiqa, people of kufr and batil, You know, it's one thing when we debate them in the speaker's corner, in that kind of environment, but we do not sit with them in their apartments and have crack jokes and hold hands and say that, oh, it's fine, we can believe, you can have your belief, I have my belief, and at the end of the day we're friends. No, that's not fun. I mean, but nevertheless, obviously these Blade Runners guys, they maybe saw him as a kind of fair game and easy target, so they maybe invite him to his house, to their house. I don't know where they went, if they went to their house or maybe a coffee shop or wherever it was. But nevertheless, I would say for someone who's a novice, I wouldn't say he done too bad. I mean, I think, to be honest, that what's his name, Zayn, he was struggling, to be honest, a lot in some instances. I think the brother did catch him off guard a few times. I was a bit surprised.
Yeah,
I was a bit surprised that he done actually, much better than, I anticipated, initially the first few minutes, and you could tell that Zayn was struggling a bit as well.
Avocado.
I just want to point out one thing, and then Hassan, please, do deal with that. First of all, I disagree with the usage of the terms anadiqa for Zayn and whoever was with him, because it seems, well, yeah, to be honest, he doesn't seem to be on that level.
Let me stop you right there, Farid. I'm sorry, I have to stop you right there, and because I say this because I've spoken to this guy several times, and when I say he's a zindiq, this is not something that you would hear me say initially when I first spoke to him. I've got a few recordings with him where we've spoken on a few occasions, and it's been respectful, and I didn't make takfir on him because I didn't see anything from him that gave me reason to do so. But observing some of the things that he said over the past few weeks, I have no doubt in my mind that this individual is a Rafidi who practices taqiyya on the highest level, who is a deceitful individual. He lies, he slanders people, and I classify him as any other Rafidi that would say that we regard to be Zindi Kafir. For me, there's no doubt about that. The reason why I say that because he's accused Aisha radiallahu anha of being a liar. Astaghfirullah. He's accused Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu of being a coward. Obviously, he seems to enjoy putting on less knowledgeable Sunnis, putting shubahat about the Sahaba and stuff like this. So, when I say zindiq, I genuinely mean it, that he is a zindiq, and for any future reference, for any Sunnis that are watching, we should not at all sit with someone like this, in someone's house, okay, fair enough, if you want to refute him on the streets, or if you want to refute him at the park, that's up to you. But sitting in someone's house, cracking jokes, no.
All right, guys. So something just came up. Is accusing Aisha, radiallahu anha, of being a liar, would that be kufr according to you guys? I'm not going to say according to Ahl Sunnah, because Ahl Sunnah, I mean, I'm sure we have multiple views on everything almost. But what do you say?
Hani,
because majority of the Shia will tell you, oh, we don't trust her. That's the majority of Shia will say we don't trust her.
طيب, instead of debating on whether it's kufr or not, why not actually debate that claim and address it?
I mean, if someone comes and even brings the issue up, putting a question mark on whether or not Aisha radiallahu anha is a truthful person. I mean, clearly someone like this is a diseased individual. He has a diseased heart, and as we know, when we deal with Shias, even the moderate ones, the one who are very kind of lenient, and they don't come out openly, we know what they conceal in their hearts. We know that when he says I doubt her trustworthiness, we know that in his heart he has more things that he wants to say. But obviously, he's clever enough that his goal is, he knows that he's not going to be able to convert more Sunnis to his batil beliefs. What he wants to do is to try to make the average lay Sunni at least to be accepting of his belief, yeah, to be kind of lenient towards his belief, that we should somehow reach a kind of common ground. That yes, that's fine. You can have the opinion that Aisha radiallahu anha, she wasn't trustworthy. Yes, Umar al-Khattab wasn't trustworthy. Yes, at least we can agree on that. That's, I believe, this is the aim that most of these Shias we see today around us have, because they know, they're clever. They know that Sunnis are not going to accept their beliefs. They know it.
Okay, so we know that the more extreme ones among them will openly accuse Aisha radiallahu anha of fahisha, of adultery or fornication. They will accuse her of that. So would you say that this accusing her of being a liar is a watered down version? And would both accusations be equal, or is one clearly a lot worse than the other?
I believe the accusation of lying is just a stepping stone of more to come. Obviously, they particularly, his association with the Rafida.org, with individuals like Hassan Qadri, individuals like Hassan Shubairi, Hassan Hussein,
Sayyid Ali Hosseini Shubairi.
Sayyid Ali Husseini. These are, these hardcore Rafida that openly accuse Aisha radiallahu anha of the most filthiest thing that we don't need to mention. So,
one objection: they're not hardcore Rafida. They are just unfiltered Shiism, bro.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, you're right. Yeah, just this is mainstream. It's mainstream. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a very important thing to mention as well. That Hassan corrected me on, that this is not some kind of fringe, opinion amongst the Shias. This is the mainstream Shiism. This is the mainstream belief. This is what we're dealing with.
Guys, can I say something? Not to talk too much about this little kid, this miskeen, this child with his cross-looking chain. This is a miskeen. This is a jahil who he struggles to pronounce a single Islamic terminology correctly, from khilafa to imama to where shall I start? And it's an absolute joke. And then they speak of academia, and they want to keep it academic and with knowledgeable people and scholars and whatnot. The reason, isn't it, that we wanted to quickly glance over this video and this discussion, not because of that person in particular, but about the shubha, right? The doubt that was raised mainly in that video. A very quick comment. I don't even know who this young brother is, but isn't it here clear, dear brothers and viewers, that here the principle makes sense, isn't it? The Sunni principle. It is not a mutlaq principle. And for every time, space and time, and for every situation, i.e. not debating Ahlul Bid'ah. There is, and I just did recently a tahqiq myself in Arabic. I read fatwa including from modern day Salafi scholars who have no issue with debates, Ahlul Bid'ah, but not under specific frameworks. Ahlul Ikhtisas, people who are specialized for it and so on. This young brother, he seems to be very young. Yani, it is. I don't want to mock the brother or anything, but everybody you can see, or many people under the video commented and said, "Wait a second, you debated someone who doesn't know who Imam Suyuti is." Yeah, one of the great Sunni muhaddithin, roughly from 500 years ago. So, and then, but let me read just quickly some comments which shows the heat that these people are getting for their hypocrisy. Look what one of the comments says. Why are these random videos of teenagers suddenly popping up? Odd. She is literally hiding at home now. Shimrani drove these fools into permanent occultation. Next one. Wait, I'm confused. Why didn't they meet Shimrani? And then thousands of excuses, damage control. One of them answers back, says that, is Shimrani the only one you have? Muslims, Ahl Sunnah answering back, it's not about the only one. Why are you guys going after young, ignorant people who clearly have no clue about Shiism? They don't even have a clue about Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, about our own scholars. Debate Shimrani or shut up. Stop giving unqualified people hours-long videos to chat to these Shias. Debate Brother Shimrani. Yeah, and you can see they are getting the heat. They are getting
they seem to be just making excuses to not debate you. I mean, I do know for a fact that one of her excuses, they accused you of a crime, which we know what that is, and then they went and backtracked and said, no, we apologize. That was unfair, accusing Hassan.
May Allah, brother, let me give
whatever.
one comment. May Allah deal with
Yeah.
them. May Allah deal with them. Legally, it can have huge consequences for them.
Yeah,
They know.
but,
They know. May Allah deal with them. May Allah deal with them swiftly and harshly. And as they know, Allah is al-Adl. Even if they regard me as a complete non-Muslim and I regard them as non-Muslims, it doesn't matter. Allah is just, as we know. Even Allah will give the haqq of a kafir. So this allegation and this raza, one of them understood how severe it is. He said it's dangerous for his family and children and so on. So that was not a small matter what they mentioned. But what else do they have? You know, people are getting tired of their excuses. People say he's very harsh. He was associated to anti-Majus. I don't know. He's very anti-Shia. What no? What your mukhalif is anti, right? Is Muhammad Hijab pro-Shia? Is Shamsi pro-Shia? No. We are mukhalifin towards
one another. But then they said, yeah, Hassan.
We can be civil with each other and discuss and sit and debate. And I can debate with them, but they're not going to debate with me. They're going to sit with somebody with blurred face who doesn't know who Imam Suyuti is. But even then, may Allah bless the young Sunni brother. Even then, mashallah, he didn't do bad, I would say.
He was, to be honest, he was on the same level as Zain. In my opinion, they were on the same level. Just towards the end, he was getting pressurized, even though, here's the thing, he was answering the questions correctly. I'm not saying all the questions. He did make some mistakes. One of them clearly was when he was talking about Ibn Lahi'a. He was saying that Ibn Lahi'a was a liar. That's not true. He initially said that Ibn Lahi'a was weak, which is correct. But in any case, he did a decent job. Say what?
He's not even weak all the time. Some people say his hadith is accepted if it's from some of the Abadila or whoever.
Actually, that notion is contested. He's generally seen as a week, transmitted by most.
Generally weak, but even there's a minor opinion. Let's just say a minor opinion.
Some later muhaddithin have adopted that stance. Yeah.
Sure. In any case,
you know what's funny, brothers, that I can imagine if the roles were reversed, and for example, me and Hassan, we picked some random shitty guy, young guy, took him to our place, and we started hammering him about shirk in his books, why, As-Saduq said this, Al-Qummi said that, your Tabrisi believes in this, Tabrisi believes in that. And can you imagine the response from these guys? What they would say? Oh, look, they're only debating Juhal. They're only debating kids. Come, why don't they debate? Or scholars or Allah, whatever. They will make all these silly little excuses, and now they're doing this themselves.
I would say let's not waste time on this. You know why? Alhamdulillah, just look at the comments. They feel the heat. You can tell everybody. Anybody who reads the comments under these videos can tell people are tired of the excuses.
Alhamdulillah, they've been exposed and they've exposed themselves.
I mean,
let's move on.
Exactly. People don't buy these excuses anymore. People don't buy. So that people want to see. People want to see the Zayn. Come debate with me. But here, glad tiding to our viewers. Forget about this kid, this miskin with a cross-looking Ali sword, which is anyway a Majusi sword. It's from the Majus, has nothing to do with Ali bin Abi Talib. Watch anti-Majus videos. Let's explain that why. Forget about this kid. Inshallah, here at 12 Shia, we will go after the big ones who are behind the screens, who here and there sometimes at Imam Hussein TV, upload some things. Don't go to Timo boy. Don't delete that thing. I downloaded already everything. No point of deleting anything. I downloaded already everything.
Shout out to Seymour.
We're gonna go with those who have this. Well, I'm not gonna call it turban. That thing they have on their head. That Sikh-like. See it? The closest is to the Sikhs.
It's a hat.
Turban. No, Sikh-like. I call it what it is. Sikh-like turban. After those who are behind the screens, and we're gonna introduce them, and it's all right, Yani. What do we do? What do we do? Do we do any crime? Do we say all Shias are bad?
Let's get to the topic, man. Let's get to the topic, Habibi. We're really.
Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And now I had a question to the moderator. Exactly. Let's go to the topic. Akhi Abu Ismail, you're the moderator. Please, Akhi. Let's not talk about this miskin kid. Yeah, Khilafat boy. Forget about him. He's a kid. He's miskin jahil. Let's go to what was the main shubha that he brought? Because, you know, these things he learned from the other jahil, Hassan al-Qadri, Adaalat al-Sahaabah, killers of Uthman. You know, these things are not new, recycled shubuhat. But for the benefit of others, if you and Farid mention what was the best thing he pulled out, and we're going to answer that, inshallah.
Who, you mean the Zayd?
Yeah, in the recent clip with this young brother who obviously,
yeah, I think obviously the main shubha that he raised was the issue of the killing of Uthman radiallahu anhu, that he accused the Sahaba. I forgot the Sahabi they mentioned, Abdurrahman. Who was it?
bin Udais al-Balawi.
Abdurrahman bin Udais. So he accused basically of him, and he mentioned a few ulama like Ibn al-Athir, amongst others, who held this opinion that it was Abdurrahman bin Udais who was behind the killing of Uthman. Let's discuss this now and examine this to see if there's any credibility to this claim.
Can I add just one thing, please? Just 10 seconds.
Okay.
What I understood as well from the shubha that he put forward was that, hey, look, these verses that you Sunnis quotes, yeah, وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ and so on and so forth. There's not dalil that all the Sahaba are good because it's conditional. So you see, there's not a single verse about Taqi or Naqi or the 9 for 10th Imams, nothing. These powerful verses about Sahaba. So in order for them to water it down, they have to bring some argument. So they say, oh yeah, it's conditional. Oh yeah, there was this Fulan Sahabi who was for Muhajirin, so not all of them are good. I hope the brother's going to address this as well. What is the correct Sunni understanding? Do we say that it is these verses mean that all of them are semi-perfect human beings, divine? And why do they, and how do Shias deal with these verses? Because believe me, it's like a thorn in their throats. If one of these verses was revealed in Al-Bayt, imagine what they would do.
So just to before we start, should we mute our mics or should we just let it flow? What do you guys think?
I think we should mute the mics.
All right then. So just mute your mics, and then I will just basically designate each and one of you, and I will maybe stop you when I think that you're going a bit too long. Inshallah. So I will start with you, Farid. Before we begin and talk about this shubha that you raised about Abdurrahman ibn Udais, the king of Uthman, radiallahu anhu. I think where they kind of got stuck was the issue of defining who is a Sahabi. What is the definition of a Sahabi, and why do we say that they are all udul? So let's first start on that bit, because I think the brother, may Allah bless him, got things a bit wrong. So is it the brother mentioned that anyone who sees the Prophet ﷺ is classified as a Sahabi? Is this correct?
I'd like to just very, very briefly mention one thing. The main shubha that he brought, in my view, is that if the evidences for Adaalat al-Sahaabah in the Quran, in the Sunnah, through the Aql, if this is the case, if the Sahaba are indeed udul, then what about the exceptions? What about the munafiqeen? What about the murtadeen? What about, that's the basic argument that Zayn is bringing forth. And then the specific example that he brought was Abdurrahman bin Udais al-Balawi. He said Abdurrahman bin Udais was one of the killers of Uthman. If he's one of the killers of Uthman, then is he a fasiq or not? If he is just, then that suggests that Uthman's killing was legit and that Uthman was a fasiq or something. However, if Abdurrahman bin Udais was a fasiq, then that means that we cannot believe in the concept of Adaalat al-Sahaabah. So that's the basic argument that he's trying to bring forth. And to answer your question, the traditional definition of what a Sahabi is, linguistically, is someone who is, who accompanies someone or who has accompanied someone. And terminologically, the definition of a Sahabi is anyone who met the Prophet ﷺ and died upon Islam. And the reason we say died upon Islam is to take out the munafiqeen and to take out the murtaddeen.
Just a quick interruption, Brother Farid. Is there no other definitions for Sahaba in Sunni Islam? Is there no other opinions for example, by Usuliyin and whatnot, which is even stricter? There's even stricter opinions on what a Sahabi is, I recall.
I agree. There definitely is. Some of them I can't remember who, and I can't remember who this is attributed to. It was an early quote. Someone said that a Sahabi is someone who at least participated in some battles. And there is another opinion that says designates a specific amount of time. However, since that does not fit with the linguistic, usage of the term, sahib, so it wasn't as used, and rather the common, the most popular usage is the one that I mentioned of, whoever met the Prophet, and they wouldn't say saw the Prophet because there were some blind Sahaba, so they wanted to include them in as well.
So, if you don't mind, if I can add something, what I know is that the orthodox or standard definition is that a Sahabi is someone who met the Prophet while he was a Muslim and died as a Muslim. And this is, if I'm not mistaken, what al-Dhahabi mentioned somewhere. And so, with this, you exclude, the mushrikeen who met the Prophet. They cannot be considered Sahaba. You exclude people who apostated. They're not in the technical definition, of what is spanned by Sahaba. And you include anyone else. I just wanted to point that out. Sorry for the introduction.
Okay,
that's good. I mean, at the end of the day, even whichever of these definitions you take, most of the people that we're concerned with are still Sahaba. I mean, the Shia, who do they bring up the most? Like, Abu Huraira or Fulan or Fulan. The top ones are still Sahaba no matter what definition you take, I think.
Oh, definitely. I think the main difference between what I mentioned and what Abu Sulaiman mentioned was that I mentioned anyone who met the Prophet ﷺ and died upon Islam, and he said whoever met the Prophet as a Muslim and died upon Islam. And then even on, and something like that, there's a minor difference of opinion among scholars. Yeah. So that's
Hassan. Anything Hassan want to add?
So wait.
Oh wait, Hassan's on mute. Okay.
Hassan, unmute your mic, Hassan. Hassan has left the building for some reason.
No, he's here. He's here.
He's gone into ghaiba.
Can you hear me?
Yes, salawat.
Salawat.
Hassan, give us your take on about the definition of Sahaba.
Yes, very quickly, and because it's very important. The mashhur opinion, what is the Sunni understanding today, and which Allah is my witness, since the day I left Shiism, how many Shia scholars, including top one, including the likes of Ayatollah Haidari, the very muhaqqiqeen researchers, play the masses and lie to them by giving a wrong definition of Sahaba to the masses, but in order to portray Sunnism as very naive, all Sunnis regard everybody as a Sahabi. Look, the very basic understanding of who is a Sahabi, the mashhur one, is as-Sahabi huwa man laqiya an-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sahabi is the one who has met the Nabi, mu'minan bih, believing in him, wa mata ala al-Islam. All right? So somebody who met the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, believed in him, and died upon Islam. So how many conditions? We have 3 main conditions, right? These are the 3 main conditions. And by the way, it includes, of course, blind Sahaba. this definition. That's why meeting him, not seeing him. Yeah, could be somebody could be blind. There were Sahaba who were blind. So look, when we have this condition, can we be play silly like some of the scholars and say, yeah, Abdullah ibn Salul or Fulan Munafiq, everybody radiyallahu anhum. Tijani the Jahil said on the Mustaqillah debates, you know, there's ex-Sufis, Tunisian, who then became 12er in 2002 in the Mustaqillah debates. He said, Yazid radiyallahu anhum. Everybody radiyallahu anhum. No, we don't say this. We don't say this. The beautiful ta'rif definition of Sahabi, the balanced one, within Ahl Sunnah, excludes the munafiqs. Now, only one thing is left now. One thing. What will the Shia say, the 12ers say? When I say Shia 12ers, when I say Sahaba the famous, Sahaba slanderers, I don't mean every Shia. Many Shias, I know they don't insult Sahaba, and many of them don't know their own religion. I mean, they're scholars and what is in the books. What do they say? They say, all right, but still, Umar ibn Khattab, Abu Hurairah, Fulan, all the foremost of the Muhajirin Ansar, the vast majority of them, are munafiqs. So it is here up to us, upon us, to refute the allegations, because their hadaf, their aim is to bring down these great men. That's why they say it. You know, this Masakin, when they went to the park, this Muhammad male, this little wannabe Yasser al-Khabith with this Hassan al-Qadri, our aim is to make isqat, to bring down Abu Bakr and Umar. Never will you manage this. Abu Bakr and Umar, radiyallahu anhum, two men of Tawheed, two men of Sunnah. Anyway, we have to establish, refute the allegations against these great men, because even if the Shi'i, and now remember this point is important, even if the Shi'i says to us, all right, accept it. So whoever saw the Prophet, believed in him, and died upon Islam. All right, I doubt that Umar died upon Islam. You understand? He will not be satisfied with you as a Sunni when you say, but according to me, Umar died upon Islam. No, he will bring tons of shubuhat to make takfir of Umar, because it's the only way to exclude him from Sahaba, from the status of Sahabi.
Okay, Hassan.
Can I add something if you don't mind?
Go ahead, brother.
Abu Smail. Okay, I think it's also important to point out that when we talk about Adala, I mean, first of all, I think inshallah later we're going to define what Adala actually is. And I also think it's important to mention that we're talking in the context of hadith, right? So yes, of course, defending the Sahaba is great, but why do they usually attack the Sahaba? It's to doubt their whole narrative that they've passed on to later, transmitters and Ahl Sunnah in general. So, I think this is an important point to make as well. And inshallah, we'll bring up the topic of Adala, and we'll see what the brothers have to say.
Okay, so basically,
I don't think there's enough time in this discussion for that, to be honest.
I think it's just a one-line, definition of what Adala actually is, because people.
I hope so.
Okay, I can go ahead if you want, and if I say something, you find incorrect, call me out.
All right, go for it.
So Imam al-Shafi'i, in his famous book Al-Risala, which was the first book written on usul, he lays down a lot of foundations in hadith transmission. And one of the requirements he has in the transmitter is that he is a adl, right? We all agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these Shias, they essentially strawman the Sunni position on what Adala is. And they make it seem like, Adala is someone who cannot commit a sin, cannot commit a major sin. Adala is someone who is infallible. And they make it analogous to Isma. And that's not the case. Shafi'i said, Adala is someone whose ta'ah, whose acts of righteousness are more than his acts of, wrongdoings and ma'asi. And so someone might commit a major sin in his life, but his general status as a whole, there's more good deeds than bad deeds. And as long as that person, is in that status and he's known to be trustworthy, he can be called adl. And so they'll bring out examples, this Sahabi killed someone. First of all, we need to historically prove if he actually killed him or not. That's one debate. The second debate is, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not adil anymore, because our adala does not simply mean, the guy can never commit a major sin. It's a straw man. And so, Farid, what do you think of this point?
I think we need to specifically look into the issue of killing someone. You know, I mean, if someone kills someone for no reason, for example, for some bloodlust or for some YouTube prank, for example, then that's someone who would be taken out of the circle of Adala. However, if someone was to kill someone due to some sort of ta'wil, due to a mistake, due to I don't know, you know, going in a rage due to, you know, the person finding the other person with his wife in bed, whatever, it could be, you know, that person could still possibly be within the realm of Adala. But apart from that, I generally agree with your assessment and your view of the situation and the understanding of the concept of Adala.
You know, the reason I say this is even the first thing you stated about someone killing someone, you know, for the wrong reasons. It's a major sin, agreeable.
Right.
Now, the person's general state is maybe he repented from that sin and he's, you know, he has more ta'ah than ma'siyah. Just like how the muhaddithin, Ibn Kathir, for example, mentions that most muhaddithin, if someone was known to be a liar in his general life, not in the hadith of the Prophet, but just the general liar who told lies to his friends and family, if the guy was known to have repented from that, then they'll accept his reports. And so, yani, you have examples where, okay, maybe the person repented, and you know, his status as a adil is not, yani, you know, absolutely negated for the rest of his life. That's all I'm just trying to say. Wallahu alam.
Allahu alam. So back to the concept of Adat Sahaba and you know the reason why this is a big deal, and this is where the Shi'is seem to, you know, they have this misconception. They have this. Was someone trying to say something right there, or?
No.
Okay. So carrying on. They try to take down, you know, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, etc., Abu Huraira, Muawiyah, and everyone that they have issues with, and they start off by attacking the concept of Adat Sahaba, assuming that if you attack the concept of Adalat Sahaba, these people will no longer be thiqat, and therefore the whole basis of Ahl Sunnah would collapse, and that's simply untrue. Because we don't believe that Abu Bakr is a good person due to Adat al-Sahaba. We believe that he's a good person because it's mutawatir. His deeds are mutawatir. The narrations in praise of him are mutawatir. And the praise that he has from his contemporaries are mutawatir. That's something I just, you know, want to get out of the way. So, and then, you know, so that's the first misconception. The second misconception is how they deal with these verses and how they understand these verses and how they try to take, you know, these verses out of context. And as Hassan said, you can't find this praise in the Quran for you know, the Imams, and so therefore that's why these verses need to be reinterpreted and re-explained in a way that, you know, cannot be seen as a direct praise.
Water them down, Akhi.
Yeah, watered down. That's the word.
I think what they fail to realize is that when they bring these claims up, it actually goes back to themselves, because if they want to cast doubts upon the Adaalat Sahaba, then we will say, okay, I mean, if you want to try to refute Bukhari and Muslim because, you know, they were narrated via these Sahaba, fair enough. But we can go further. We can say, hang on, a lot of these Sahaba narrated the Quran to us. You know, we have the Quran due to these Sahaba. So you can't pick and choose what you like. If you want to say that Bukhari and Muslim has been tampered with and it was transmitted via liars and fabricators, khalas, you have to say the same thing about the Quran. Because you don't have a Shi'i narration, a isnad, a chain of narration that goes back to your Imams. You don't have it. It comes through all Imams, from Ahl Sunnah wa Jama'ah. So we have to say, look, you have to be consistent. You know, if you want to claim that these Sahaba were not udul, and that all books, all hadith books, are not reliable, then the same goes for the Quran. And this is the kind of problem with the essence of Tashayyu, is that the very essence of their claim backfires on themselves.
What would you say, guys, if we talk now about the main shubha, this verse that they talked about in the video, which is Allah al-Azim, like, yani, what shall I say? A thorn in their throats. One of the many verses that the scholars have to water down, yeah, because it is such a huge praise of the Sahaba. We can even we can even change some terminologies and put the Imam's name in there, and then let people decide what they would do, the 12 us, if these verses were about the Imams. What do you say? We start talking about this verse.
Sounds good.
All right, so brothers and sisters, those who are watching, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم والسابقون الأولون من المهاجرين والأنصار والذين تبعوهم بإحسان رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه وأعد لهم جنات تجري تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها أبدا ذلك الفوز العظيم.
ما شاء الله.
ذلك الفوز العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُ. And we're going to analyze everything because, let's answer all these shubuhat because they try to water down this beautiful verse. وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ. The first foremost, مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ. Here already they say, it's only the first foremost. We're going to talk about that. The first foremost from the muhajirin, مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصار. And the Ansar. وَالَّذِينَ تَبَعُوهُمْ. And those who followed them. Allahu Akbar. Allah praising those who followed the first foremost from Muhajirin Ansar, بِإِحْسَان, in goodness, رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. Allah is pleased with them and they are pleased with Allah. وَعَدَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي تَحْتَهَا الْأَنْهَارِ. And Allah has prepared for them gardens, the rivers go under them. خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا أَبَدًا. They're going to dwell in it forever. ذَلِكَ فَوْزُ الْعَظِيمِ. This is the greatest victory. طيب. So here we have a verse, yeah. Our opponents are mukhalifin, as the brother Abu Sulaiman correctly said, often try to misconstruct, to strawman our argument and say, you use this verse to portray the Sahaba as semi-infallible. Huh? Some of them admit they know we don't regard them as infallible, but they say, do you say Adaalat al-Sahaba, they're all udul? They're all worthy to be followed based on this verse. However, this verse has conditions. The very first condition is وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ. The first foremost. It doesn't even say all the Muhajirin and Ansar. So let's go step by step. I play the Shia role here now for you guys. طيب, I play the Shia now. I say, Ya Bakris, وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ. That's not about Muhajirin and Ansar in general. That's about وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ, the first foremost. A specific group of the Muhajirin and Ansar. The very first of them. Not all your beloved Sahaba. How do you answer this shubha?
I think I can make an important point regarding this ayah. Tell me, what does it say after that when Allah says وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ? What does Allah say after that?
الَّذِينَ تَبَعُوهُمْ بِإِحْسَانٍ.
Exactly. The rest of the Sahaba that followed them, they were the first ones, the torchbearers, and then later Sahaba came and they accepted the message, and Allah, gave victory to His Prophet, and more Sahaba, entered Islam, and they followed the first ones. So what's the issue?
Sorry, I forgot to, because we have to be fair, I forgot to read the rest. Because what do they accuse us of? I watched the lectures of the Shuyukh, Qiyas al-Habib, Ayatollah Haydari. They say, these Sunnis, they don't read the ayah that comes. Although this is a trait of the Rafidha, of the extremist scholars, to cut one verse in half, as they do with Ayatul Tathir. It is a long verse about the wives. They only take the last part. However, they accuse us that we don't look at the verse that follows. Let me just mention the verse that follows. That was Surah Al-Fath, wasn't it? Oh, sorry, that was Surah Tawbah, what I recited, verse 100. The next verse is وَمِمَّنْ حَوْلَكُمْ مِنَ الْأَعْرَابِ مُنَافِقُونَ وَمِنْ أَهْلِ الْمَدِينَةِ مَرَدُوا عَلَى النِّفَاقِ لَا تَعْلَمُهُمْ نَحْنُ نَعْلَمُهُمْ. So they will say, Allah says it after, verse 100 in Surah At-Tawbah, وَمِمَّنْ حَوْلَكُمْ مِنَ الْأَعْرَابِ, and those A'rab, Bedouin Arabs, desert dwelling Arabs, among them are munafiqun, وَمِنْ أَهْلِ الْمَدِينَةِ, and from the people of Medina, maradu ala nifaq. Nifaq has been established in them. You do not know them, we know them. Which, by the way, is another refutation of one of their creeds, because here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing first and foremost the Prophet and telling him, you don't know at that stage, all the munafiqs. Anyway, I set the claim. This is how they argue. This is one of the best shots to say that it's not a dalil, because look, Allah here about your munafiq Sahaba, here you got it. وَمِمَّنْ حَوْلَكُمْ مِنَ الْأَعْرَابِ مُنَافِقُونَ, here. And وَمِنْ أَهْلِ الْمَدِينَةِ. So now I got the whole shubha now, and you guys can answer. I'm praying the Shia again.
I'll go first if you guys don't mind. I mean, when Allah says وَمَنْ حَوْلَكُمْ مِنَ الْأَعْرَابِ مُنَافِقُونَ, we can all agree this has nothing to do with the Sahaba, right? It's the Arab, the Bedouins that lived around Medina, who some, accepted Islam for their own interests and whatnot. They're excluded from the whole discussion aslan. What we need to debate is وَمِنْ أَهْلِ الْمَدِينَةِ مَرَدُوا عَلَى النِّفَاقِ. Okay, let's go a simple linguistic analysis. من is a harf jar, right? تفيد التبعيض. التبعيض, which means some. So there are some people from Medina who were hypocrites and concealed their kufr. And the reality is, there's no contradiction between this saying, all of the first of those companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they were blessed people, pious people, and those who truly followed them after them, from the other companions, were good people. And then Allah says, and there were some people in Medina after that who looked like they were following them, but they didn't follow them, and they're hypocrites. There's no contradiction in the ayah aslan. You get my point?
No.
So Allah, that's what I think I have to say for now.
Anyone else has a comment on the shubha I pulled out?
Hani, where's Hani? Is he gone?
Yeah, he
I
was
think
here
he's
like
gone.
a second ago, but I think he might be back.
Sorry, do you want to comment on that?
I want to comment on another aspect of it.
Yeah, I expect to.
So they would say, it's about the sabiqun, and it's not about all of them, right? So the simplest response is, do you, ya Shi'i, accept the Adala of the sabiqun? And that's where, that's where the conversation goes, a bit funky. Ayatollah Sanat, he recently became an Ayatollah. He's Bahraini Ayatollah. He's currently, I believe, in Najaf. He says that this is from what I recall, he says that this is about Ahl Bayt. He says that what does he say? He says Muhajirin, what's meant by Muhajirin is, of course, Ali and Fatima, and the Ansar are the people who gave Nusra, who include Al-Hasan and Hussein. If you go to Tafsir al-Qummi, it says that this verse is about it says it's about Abu Dhar, Salman, Al-Maqdad, like the main specific people of the Shias like.
I think also, sorry to cut you off, I think As-Sanad mentioned that one of the Sabiquna, the forerunners meant, and he tried to use that for Isma to kind of prove the infallibility of the Imams as well. So they have, they use these and twist these verses.
Subhanallah. This just goes to show how powerful this verse is. But you need to turn it into a verse that supports Ahl al-Bayt in order for you to continue preaching this, or to deflect the dangers of the verse.
I mean, the thing is, we have, Ahl Sunnah. I mean, we can really literally sit here all night, and we have so many evidences, whether it's tawfiq am or tawfiq khas. We have general praise and we have specific praise. of the Sahaba. And what we're doing here is trying to, prove to these people that yes, the Sahaba of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam were just. Yes, and the irony for me is this: is that we have all of his narrations in abundance to prove this. Yet when it comes to them, and we find in their books, for example, their scholars like Mufid quotes that the Sahaba of Ja'far as-Sadiq is adl by default. Why? Because he saw them, nothing else. They don't have any evidences, nothing whatsoever of him being adl. But the fact that Ja'far as-Sadiq saw the person means that this person is adl by default. So clearly a lot of double standards,
You know what's ironic?
Well, for me, it's laughable, honestly. I mean,
Yeah, it's ironic. You
live in a glass house and you throw stones in it. Why you live in a glass house?
Yeah, you'll find in their books, for example, Al-Majlisi, for example, talking about Rawi. He said, "Oh, he was, the shoe polisher of the Imam, so he's a thiqa. Oh, the Imam sent him once on a task. That means he's a thiqa.
Brothers,
Oh, he's not. Yani, it's a mess. It's a mess. They make it seem as if their literature, is very well developed, and it really is a mess.
the reality is, Shias, most of them, they don't know their own religion. They are being spoon-fed and brainwashed with a lot of shubuhat, because in the past, especially in the past, Shias were way more active in spreading shubuhat, and Sunnis was asleep. Alhamdulillah, things have changed. But most of the Shias, unfortunately, are brainwashed with these cheap and recycled shubuhat. Take, for example, that they hear that, Sunni narrators, some of them were Nawasib or Khawarij, which is, in fact, it shows the justice of Ahl Sunnah, because with certain conditions, they took narrations from Ahl Bid'ah, with certain conditions, not from every Khariji, every Rafidi, just like that. Certain conditions, which shows their justice. But does any Shi'i know that in their own books, they have Nasibi narrators, people of Kuffar according to the madhab? Aslan, this is the only madhab that narrated from Kuffar, based on their own principles, if they're strict. They have narrated from Kuffar. Their top narrators include alcoholics, Khammar, like Abu Hamza Thumali, one of the main narrators, and he's so famous in my country, Iran, because the dua is attributed to him, and he attributes it to one of the imams. He was a Khammar, to the end of his life, drinking alcohol. Zurara the Mal'oon, la'natullah alayh. Zurara, the top narrator. Zurara, guys, is the top narrator, one of the absolute top narrators of Trovaism, and a so-called companion of as-Sadiq. This Zurara insulted in their own books as-Sadiq. In their own books. He called him a foolish old man. And guess what the scholars say? I watched the clips in Arabic, Yasir Khabir, what excuses they bring. Oh, Zurara, he was a new companion, he was new to Tashayyu. Hundreds of excuses for the Sahaba of the Imams. But when it comes to the Sahaba of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, attack. And one last thing, if you allow me, please. One last thing. I'm not here, a'udhu billah, from mocking the Quran. Inshallah, we are Ahlul Sunnah wa Jama'ah. Inshallah, we are Ahlul Quran. We are the people of the Quran. We are the people who spread the Quran. We are the people who write about Arab, Tajweed. And as we know, the Rafid are the laughing stocks when it comes to the Quran, especially the Ayatullahs. So there's no mocking here. Just for the sake of education. Imagine for a second, brothers, and I would like Brother Farid or Bu Ismail or Bu Sulaiman to translate. I'm gonna change the verse, add something to the verse, change some words. Imagine it would have been revealed like this. This is not a mocking. This is just for the sake of, imagine it would have been revealed for the Imams what they would do with this verse. They would tattoo it on their backs and whatnot. Imagine it would say, and you translate it, وَالْمَعْصُومُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْأَئِمَّةِ الطَّاهِرِينَ وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُمْ بِإِحْسَانٍ رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه وعد لهم جنات تجري تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها أبدا ذلك الفوز العظيم. Please translate this. Imagine this verse would be والمعصومون الأولون من الأئمة and so on. Please translate someone, and you get the gist. You get what I mean. Imagine it would be revealed for the Imams, for Taqi and Naqi in what.
The first one, the infallible for amongst the Imams. What was it? The worst, was it?
Follow them.
Yeah.
Go on.
Imagine.
Yeah.
Billahi alaykum. Seriously, honestly, genuinely, I mean it.
Hassan, just
verse. By the way, this verse, no, none of you have commented on it. This verse includes وَالَّذِينَ تَبَعُوهُمْ. Yani Allah is praising all those who followed them after them. Where's such a verse about Ahlul Bayt? Where's a verse where Allah says, follow Ahlul Bayt? Where's a verse where Allah says, and those who follow the Ahlul Bayt? Hadith al-Kisa, Hadith Thaqalain, we can discuss this separately. As you guys know, those who follow us know, those who know the stance of Ahl Sunnah, we believe in Hadith al-Thaqalain. It has nothing to do with following. It's Am anyway. The Prophet said, I leave Quran, Ahl Bayt. Didn't say I leave Quran and 12 Imams. Follow Taqi and Naqi, otherwise you go to hell. We have
Hassan, please, Akhi. There's someone in the comments who just said something, and I think this is something that needs to be commented on. All right, it's quite fascinating. He says, first of all, he does la'an alayk, Hassan. All right, he says la'natullahi alayk, for accusing Abu Hamza al-Thumali of being a drunkard. He was doing taqiyya. There's evidence.
Wait a second. So this person, Aslan, Allah does not accept the la'an of mushrikeen. So he can do la'an to
You can't accuse the guy of shirk, man. You can't accuse the guy of shirk, bro. We don't even know who he is. Yeah, he's someone who dislikes you, but we gotta be nice.
You know my stance of the asl of them. Anyway, so this person makes la'an on me, and then he said, because I said that one of the main narrators of Shiism was a khamar, alcoholic, till the end of his life. I have researched this. The scholars don't deny this. The scholars just add one thing. Just before the end of his life, he made tawbah, apparently. But here's the point. Here's the problem for their sect. All these times he narrated stuff, he was an alcoholic. How can Shias take the religion from someone like Abu Hamza al-Thumali? By the way, al-Thumali with tha, yeah? Nothing to do with Thumali or something. Nobody. Ahlul Tawheed. مبغضين للشيء والرفض.
What is Thumali أصلا, يعني linguistically speaking?
الثمالي? I don't know what that
means. ثمل يثمل, يعني it means he became unconscious or drunk. Really? Thamala?
Yeah. Now, Allah bless you, Farid. So the comment is, may Allah curse Hassan Shimrani. The commenter says, oh, actually our narrator did taqiyya. You see, this is the first card they always pull out. The taqiyya excuse. The taqiyya excuse.
Excuse me. It was to be fair. It's he said Zurara was making taqiyya. I just saw right now. I just saw the comments. I said Zurara did taqiyya, not Abu Hamza. And the Musliman.
He doesn't know that.
Just one second, bro. And the quick thing, Abu Sulaiman, it says that Thumali is nisbatan ila Thumala wa hiya min al-Azd. Thumala bin Aslam bin Ka'b, so it wasn't due to his drinking issues.
Okay, I think
you know me and Ansab, I'm gonna get really specific with this.
La, good, it's good. Calm me out.
Fairness is always good. Fairness with our staunchest opponents, of course, Akhi. You know, Akhi, you know that. You know, I'm the furthest away what people would expect it from me. Yeah, well, I clarify things. I clarify when people lie upon Shiism, go into extremes. Anyway, what I said, and I wrote an article about this on Gift to Shias. Is it released? Is that a Zurara article released? It is released.
Yeah.
If you type Gift to Shias Zurara, I contribute there as well. Who's Hassan Shimrani? I have an article about Zurara there. I don't know if I added there this particular point, but it's famous in that books. Most Shias don't know this. One of the main Sahaba, if you like, Sahabi of Jafar al-Sadiq, called Jafar al-Sadiq, Imam al-Sadiq, an old foolish man. But his Adala, is his Adala gone? Huh? Is he now? No. 1,000 excuses. I'm telling you, I watched Yasir
He
al-Habib's.
was doing taqiyya.
Hmm?
He was
No,
doing taqiyya.
no. Don't say this because that's what just Farid said. That Shia guy said. No. I watched the whole half an hour excuse of Yasir al-Habib, one of the top apologists, and Sunni refuters. Guess what he said? He said Zurara here. Zurara was new in Tashayyu here. He was a Bakri before. He was new in Tashayyu. He didn't understand that the divinity of that the Ma'soom, that this is actually an infallible Imam. He treated Jafar al-Sadiq like a faqih, like other faqihs. He did accept him as his Imam, but not fully as his infallible Imam, Excuse upon excuse. Imagine Umar ibn Khattab, akhi, in our books, or Abu Bakr goes to the Prophet and says, "You are old foolish man, a'udhu billah. Billah alayk, Abu Sulaiman, Abu Ismail, Farid." If we have a single narration from a Rawi in our books, Sahabi, Tabi'i, Atba' al-Tabi'in, any, going to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, obviously Tabi'i can't go, let's say Sahabi, going to the Prophet and saying to him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, asking him a question about deen, and then being unsatisfied and saying, what is this old foolish man talking about? What would they do and say about our stance and excusing this companion? Wouldn't they call us munafiqeen and of course. Yet the problem is, brother, these things have not been have not reached their ears. Akhi. How many Shias know this ma'luma?
They don't translate their books. They're not translated. They're not as accessible. For Ahl Sunnah, you go online, we have al-Maktaba al-Waqfiyya, al-Maktaba al-Shamila. You can download any book, PDF, muhaqqaq, it's accessible. In English, we translate our books as well. The 6 books of hadith are translated. For them, all they have translated is al-Kafi. Out of everything they have, it's a mess.
Akhi, but in all fairness, if I would be a 12er, I wouldn't translate my books as well, Akhi.
Well, they have translated a lot of the books, but the problem is that majority of them can't speak Arabic.
It's not true. That's not true, Ismail. If we're talking about the usul, we're talking about the main early books. They're not translated. You have some books, but the are translated.
2 or 3 of the traditional tafsir, not tafsir al-Mizan by some modern day Ayatollah, who does taqiyya, wilad, faqih type. Can you name me one of the traditional tafsir? Look, Akhi, I'll tell you one thing. We live in London here. You can go to any Islamic bookshop, get Tafsir ibn Kathir, can't you? In English language. It's a decade and more. Why? Because it's filled with Tawheed. It's about Tawheed. Ayatul Tawheed, verses about calling upon Allah alone, verses about the praise of Sahaba, Ahlul Bayt, and so on and so forth. Khalas. Would you think, why don't they translate Al-Qummi, Tafsir Al-Qummi on a large scale? I'm not saying, I know they have ikhtilaf, some of them say it can't be 100% attributed, but many of the scholars accept it. In fact, some of the scholars like Al-Khu'i and others say that all the narrators are fiqh and everything is authentic. So where's Tafsir Al-Qummi on a large scale? Why is it not being sold? Tafsir Al-Ayashi. I tell you why, Akhi. Wallahi, even if I would be a Mu'ammam, Turban hat, Shi'i, I wouldn't want Tafsir Al-Qummi and Ayashi and so on being widespread everywhere, available in 10 languages, because it's an embarrassment. It's batiniyah, khurafat, kufriyat. You would, every revert would laugh. And those few miskin reverts, and alhamdulillah, they're always few compared to the vast majority who come out of Sunnah, would flee from this religion. Imagine somebody reading Tafsir Al-Qummi. Imagine somebody reading the tafsir, what Tini was Zaytun. Tini Zaytun is Hassan Hussein. Any ajizeen, bankrupt people they are. Because they are bankrupt, because the Quran is not in their support, because we have wasabiqun al-awwalun, because we have laqad radiyallahu anil mu'minina idh yubayi'unaka tahta ash-shajara, because we have all these verses, and all they play and misuse verses about the wives and other verses. What did they do? The Batiniya game. Fig means Hassan, olive means Hussein, I don't know, cow means Aisha here, Surah Al-Baqarah.
Excuse me, Hassan.
It's Ali.
Let's move on, inshallah, to the next.
If you guys don't mind, for the fa'idah, because يعني Hassan, made a major claim, and this is something that needs to be, of course, evidence needs to be provided for this stuff. I have in front of me تفسير الغمي, all right? مؤسسة الأعلمي, the edition is مؤسسة الأعلمي, and this is printed in the year 2007. It's the first edition, okay? So it says التين والزيتون, okay? قال التين رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم صلى الله عليه وآله, والزيتون أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام, okay? وطور سنين, okay? الحسن والحسين عليهما السلام, والبلد الأمين الأئمة عليهم السلام.
By the way, باطنية, this terminology is very important. باطنية, how do I translate this? يعني esoterical. How do you translate this? باطنية.
Historic and hidden.
Yes.
Gnostics.
Yeah. Yes. Like باطنية are those false sects, and there's different levels of باطنية. They can't prove their sect based on muhkamat, clear-cut verses. So they go to the mutashabihat, verses about figs, about cows, about flies. Ali's the fly in Quran, Ali's the dabba, the beast in the Quran, all, and apply it to their imams, and all the evil animals are Abu Bakr and Umar, playing around tala'ub with the verse of Allah. Why? Because this Quran does not support the religion. This Quran. So anyway, in a nutshell, wallahi, I will want to see the day where a Shi'i dares to spread his classical tafsir books, because people would flee from this religion, inshallah. That day people would be embarrassed and would say,
that's the whole aim and goal of our project.
Inshallah, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna pull out mafatih, we're gonna pull out that tafsir and say, guys, when these people say madhab ahl al-bayt salamullah alayhim, when they talk about ahl al-bayt, when they say followers of the commander of the faithful, Ali wa shi'ati min al-faizin, all these things they attribute to themselves. This is what is behind this mask, behind this sweet slogan. The slogan is sweet, isn't it? Followers of ahl al-bayt, following ahl al-bayt. Slogan is sweet, no doubt. But behind the slogan, behind this mask, is an ugly face of kufr, bid'ah, and dalalat. A cocktail of zandaqa, where the worst forms of zandaqa, from all the worst sects, from the Jahmiyyah, Mu'tazila, Khawarij, in the takfir, they're worse than Khawarij.
Okay, barakallah feek, Hassan. Jazakallah khair, inshallah. Should we? Because I know, mashallah, Hassan, I know people, including us, wallahi, for people that are listening, wallahi, let it be known that Hassan, wallahi, and he's mashallah very enjoyable to listen to and watch. But sometimes you have to put stop to him, because mashallah, he has a lot of knowledge and he has a lot to say. And then inshallah, may Allah make us all sincere, inshallah, and amongst them. So inshallah, guys, brothers, should we move on? I think we've.
Oh yeah, sure.
I feel like there's much to say. I think there's still much to say about Adaalat Sahaba.
Okay.
Let's not be too general. We wanted to talk about this specific person. He, this roadrunner said, "Was-sabiqun al-awwalun." You mentioned this verse, min al-muhajirin, and other verses. Well, there was a Sahabi who was a killer of Uthman. Did he say actually killer, or did he say involved? I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
I actually researched about this Sahabi, supposed Sahabi. And first of all, I think several points need to be made. They always cite exceptional cases, right? They'll have a handful of certain Sahaba they'll always choose.
Of course.
And choose certain stories. So the point is, the existence of an exception proves the original rule, that they're generally udud, and that there could be some exceptions. This is one thing. Second thing is, I went back to this Abdurrahman bin what's his name? Bin Udays. They're trying to doubt the Adala of the Sahaba and the transmission of hadith in our books. How many hadith does this Abdurrahman bin Udays transmit? Can someone?
One.
None. Exactly.
No, it's one. It's one.
So the one I found was in Musnad al-Bazzar and Musannaf ibn Shayba. And it's not even him quoting the Prophet, it's a tabi'i, reporting what he saw him do, right?
Okay, who is it by?
Abdurrahman bin Udais.
From who narrates it from him?
From Abu Thawr al-Fahmi.
Okay. And طبعا this is through Abdullah bin Lahi'a, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Okay.
in al-Bastar, they're all through Ibn Lahi'a, which is a weak report aslan.
Okay, go on.
So we have no authentic reports aslan. We have no evidence to show that this man was aslan a transmitter of hadith. And yet they generalize an example from this person who could, I don't know if he's a Sahabi actually, I haven't researched him. But they generalize his ruling to span what? More than 12,000 Sahaba, more than 140,000 Sahaba. And it's a mess.
Yeah.
Also, the thing is that the Shias have to understand is that even if he was a Sahabi and he had one hadith or whatever, is that exceptions that does not take away the general rule. Yeah?
No.
If you say the exceptions takes away the general rule, it's upon you to prove it. You have to prove it. You can't bring us these shubhat, you chuck it at us, this Sahaba did this, Sahaba did that, and then you try to put doubt in people's heart. No. The general rule is they all udul. If you want to say the exceptions, okay, yes, we know that not all Sahaba were perfect. Yes, some of them made mistakes. Some of them did drink alcohol. We have this in our books. But if you want to say specific Sahabas that we narrate from hadith or exception to the rule and they are not adl, it's upon you to prove it.
You just said that we admit that Sahaba made mistakes or they drink alcohol. Yeah?
Yeah, and I think... Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Hassan.
When we mention this point, some of them sometimes laugh and say, so you take your religion from people who drink alcohol. Because remember, I just mentioned the other Sahabi in their religion.
Abu Hamza.
Abu Hamza al-Thumali. He was an alcoholic till the end of his life. And they take the deen and the spirituality from him. Dua Abu Hamza al-Thumali. When do they recite it? They have all these khurafat, bid'ah, Christian-like du'as every day, sitting in the choir, sitting together, Dua Nudba and all these khurafat. We, on the other hand, look at the beautiful verse. وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُم بِإِحْسَانٍ, in goodness. Look, this is what I, subhanAllah, as an ex-Shia, whenever I talk to my own family or other people who are interested and open-minded Shias, I say to them, look, you have been fat with lies and misconstructed beliefs of us, the Sunnis, which is we believe we follow the Sahaba in goodness, i.e., a Sunni even rejects a practice or a statement, possibly, of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, because he's not ma'soom. Is it possible? Yes. Can Abu Bakr make a mistake? Yes. We reject statements of Ali bin Abi Talib. None of them are ma'soomeen, infallible, except the Messenger of Allah and the Anbiya. So this is the Sunni position. So if a Shia says to me, but Muawiyah fought Ali, I say, yes, and that was wrong. And our scholar said, this is wrong. Ali was on haqq. Ali ma'al haqq. Ali ma'al haqq. Ali was on haqq. What else do you want? You want takfir. You want to go into extremes like the Khawarij. That's why you're Rawafid, because you have the trait of the Khawarij. And just one last thing, and I wanted to ask brothers, these miskeen said that you got probably tomorrow they're going to say Abu Sulaiman is also my teacher.
I'll learn from you, yeah.
I'll learn from each other. Barakallah. I have here something you can comment on this, brother Abu Sulaiman or brother Farid, please. Abdurrahman bin له صحبة ولم يثبت أنه من أصحاب الشجرة. It is established that he has صحبة, and he's a Sahabi. However, it is not established that he's from Ashab al-Shajara. What is Ashab al-Shajara? The companions that give bay'ah under the tree of Ridwan, which itself is a very interesting point. Don't you believe? The bay'ah of Ridwan, the bay'ah of the Sahaba of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is in the Quran forever, in a positive meaning, right? And yet these people come out with bay'at al-Ghadir and whatnot, something that Allah never mentioned in the Quran, which they misconstruct anyway. Anyway, it says, min ashab al-shajara, wa lam yathbut innahu min ashab al-shajara. It is not established that this Abdurrahman ibn Udais was from the ashab of the shajara, from the people who give the bay'ah under the shajara. إنما أتى ذلك الخبر على عن ابن لهيعة. Yeah, لهيعة.
بفتح اللام.
Lahya, Lahya. What is a ayn there?
لهيعة.
Lahya.
Yeah.
ابن لهيعة وهو الشيعي شديد الضعف, and he was a Shi'i, extremely weak Shi'i. وخبر كونه من قتلة عثمان إنما جاء من طريق الواقدي, and the report that he was literally responsible for the killing of Uthman, of Uthman, إنما جاء من طريق الواقدي. Al-Waqidi, as far as I know, Shi'i, and I don't know. So,
can I clarify on something?
yes, of course.
Okay, so Ibn Lahi'a, why is he weak? I want to point that out. It's not because he's a Shi'i, because our scholars will accept, the transmission of a Shi'i if he's trustworthy. There's so many examples, like Abbad bin Yaqub, who, Ibn Khuzaymah said, the one whom we doubt in his religion and his faith, yet we think is trustworthy in his transmission, Abbad bin Yaqub told us. So they accept the transmission of a Shi'i if he's trustworthy. The problem with Ibn Lahi'a is he had his hadith written down, in his books and in his papers, and he used to rely on that in transmission, and that is excellent. If he has access to his papers and yuhaddith min kitabihi, he transmits the hadith from his books, it's acceptable. The problem is his library burned. He started transmitting hadith from his memory, and his memory was really bad. And when you do takhrij of a hadith, you always find Ibn Lahi'a makes the most random mistakes in the hadith when you compare the different isnads. This is one thing. Second thing, Al-Waqidi is known to be weak. Some even accused him of being a liar. And so we cannot depend on Al-Waqidi for anything, historically.
So, Akhi, am I correct then to assume, from what I've read in Arabic and translated to you, that yes, we can agree to the extent that this Ibn Udais al-Balawi had suhbah, he was a Sahabi. That one is difficult to reject. We don't want to, we don't need to. However, anything further than that he was literally responsible for the actual killing, no. All we can say, once again, all we can say is it might be possible. Of course it can be possible. He was not from we don't believe that he's a major Sahabi. It is possible that he was influenced in a way. He might have had a negative view of Uthman. He might have been among those people who rebelled, whatever, but that he was an actual killer, this is from Al-Waqidi and from the Shia narrator. Is that correct?
If you guys don't mind, I'll briefly comment on this, inshallah, to end this discussion on this specific issue. In regards to Abdullah bin Lahi'a being a killer of Uthman, or leading those that killed Uthman.
You mean Abdurrahman bin Udais.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. my bad. Okay, we're talking about Ibn Lahi'a so much. Okay. Yes, Abdurrahman bin Udais. As you guys said, that only appears in the narrations of Ibn Lahi'a and some stuff by Al-Waqidi. Al-Waqidi muttaham bil-kadhib, he's accused of lying. Ibn Lahi'a is weak. Therefore, we cannot accept this report. It's in historical books. Who cares? Who cares if it's in historical books? It's through those people. Those people are the first people who report it, and therefore we cannot accept it. That's the first thing. Secondly, was he a Sahabi? There is not enough evidence to suggest that he was a Sahabi, because to establish that someone is a Sahabi, you either have to have a chain in which that person narrates from Rasulullah ﷺ, and it's authentically attributed to that person, that's one, or number two, that he's recognized as Sahabi within a narration, or number three, he's known, famously, through shuhra or through tawatur, that he's a Sahabi. And if you don't have any of these, and all you have are some weak reports that mention that he was someone who pledged under the tree, that's insufficient evidence for him being a Sahabi. It doesn't matter if he's mentioned in books like Usd al-Ghaba or al-Isti'ab or al-Isaba, Ibn Hajar, because these books, they mention everyone who is ever mentioned as a Sahabi, whether it's authentic or not.
So is it correct, Farid, to assume that if we and the Shias and everybody else who's a truthful truth seeker, instead of going to the shubuhat, would go back to the muhkam? What is the muhkam?
Yes.
The muhkam is the Quran. Is it correct, yes or no?
Yes.
The Quran informs us, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لقد رضي الله عن المؤمنين إذ يبايعونك تحت الشجرة فعلم ما في قلوبهم فأنزل السكينة عليهم إلى آخر الآية. Surah Al-Fatih. So Allah says in the Quran, verily Allah has been pleased with the believers when they give you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the bay'ah under the tree. This is the blessed bay'ah in the Quran, not bay'at al-Ghadir. So, which wasn't a bay'ah anyway. So, Brother Farid, is that correct? We have a clear text on the Quran. Additionally, we have in Sunnah that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لا يدخل أحد ممن بايع تحت الشجرة النار. None from among those who have given the bay'ah, the pledge of allegiance under the tree, will enter the hellfire. Al-Rawi Jabir ibn Abdullah, one of the narrators, Jabir ibn Abdullah, hadith, the hadith is Sahih Masdar al-Rahma al-Ghaythiyah. So this hadith is in some books of the Ahl Sunnah, authentically narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, none who has given the pledge of allegiance.
It's in Sahih Muslim, by the way.
Huh?
The hadith you mentioned is in Sahih Muslim.
Sahih Muslim as well. So طيب. So if we now, yani look, if we are thinking from an usul, from a basic point, and the irony is, subhanallah, I wish the Shias would use their brains. They claim that they reject everything that goes against the Quran. Isn't that one of their statements, and based of, I think, of one of Khulani's statements? Whatever, they say that they're going to smash anything that is against the Quran against the wall. Yet what we often see, or in most cases, they do the exact opposite. They go for the, as Brother Abu Sulaiman explained beautifully, they go for the exception, They go for the mutashabihat, for the ambiguous text in the Quran and in the Sunnah, and sometimes for the completely fabricated text, to interpret the muhkam instead of doing the other way around. Instead of viewing ambiguous text, doubted text, this Fulan person was a Sahabi, was he involved in the killing? Instead of viewing that in the muhkam, which is this beautiful verse, Allah says, verily Allah is pleased with those who have given the bay'ah under the tree. وَعَلِمَ مَا فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ, and Allah knew what is in the hearts. So here, we don't have a right to ask, Allah knew what was in the heart, and was this right that pleased with them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I also think we can make some good arguments for Adala in general. Obviously, first of all, the ayat you listed are great. Especially the ayah of al-bay'ah, because they cannot say, oh, this is Hassan and Hussein. For sure, it's clear. It's 1,400 Sahaba. You've pledged pledged allegiance to the Prophet, and Allah revealed about them. Historically, this is accepted by everyone. And so this ayah is clear. طيب, for the sake of argument, we'll tell you, okay, not all the Sahaba are adul. At least you're obliged to believe that these 1,400 are blessed people and that they're reliable. And then there's a lot of other ayahs, but I think we can make a good historical case as well. Why? So what they say is that the Sahaba, came and fabricated a bunch of ahadith, right? And they made it up and they distorted the narrative and they passed it down to the later Nawasib. The thing is, when you look at the Sahaba, there's several indicators that show you that they were actually very trustworthy people and they were honest in what they transmitted. Example, when someone transmits a report that portrays him in a bad way, that makes him look like he did something wrong, then you have good reason to assume the person is not lying, because if the person is making something up, he's probably going to make something up to, make him look good or not, whatnot. So example is when Umar radiallahu anh reports the story of al-Hudaybiyah, which is a little, when it happened in the Sirah, Umar reports that when they started negotiating, Umar got angry and, he asked the Prophet, are we not on the truth? And, everyone knows what happened in the Sirah. And then Umar says, and since then, I've been increasing my salah and my ibadah. So he admits he did a mistake. If he was trying to make something up, he's going to make himself look like a ma'soom. You see my point?
Never ever is this the trait of a munafiq. A munafiq would never highlight his mistakes. The opposite. He would only
Another good example is what this Shia Blade Runner kid goes around and Sayyid Ali, and they go around saying, oh, Aisha herself admitted she was a liar. Let's go back to these reports. Aisha used to say that she used to fight with the Prophet, right, as a wife. They would have disagreements and whatnot. And one time she says she basically not lied to him, but how can I say it? Didn't present the facts as they were exactly. This shows that Aisha in reality is an honest transmitter. She's reporting something that makes her look bad, and she didn't have a problem, sharing it to other people.
This was husband-wife relation. You don't apply here jarh and ta'dil and say that here Aisha's a lie. She's a wife there. She is normal.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree with that point. But even then, let's say you're gonna say no, it's not a wife and husband. For the sake of argument, this person is reporting something against his own self. Yani it's clear he's saying the truth. If she wanted to lie and make stuff up and distort the facts, she wouldn't be making herself look like she did something wrong. Same thing, Usama bin Zayd. You know the famous story. It's transmitted in Abu Dawood, Sunan Abu Dawood, where Usama, in the middle of a battle, he was about to kill the mushrik, and the mushrik yelled La ilaha illallah, and Usama still killed him. Usama says, after that, I felt a bit bad, and I actually went to the Prophet ﷺ to ask him for his opinion. And the Prophet looked at him and furiously asked him, did he say La ilaha illallah? And Usama said, Messenger of Allah, he said it out of fear. He didn't say it out of good intentions. And the Prophet was furious. He told him, did you reveal upon what was in his heart? What will you do with La ilaha illallah on the day of judgment? Usama bin Zayd is reporting a hadith where he himself, he admits he made a mistake. And the Prophet ﷺ verbally corrected him and was furious on him. If someone wanted to lie and distort facts, he wouldn't be reporting something against him. And this is a qarina indicator muhaddiths rely on. If a mubtadi' comes and transmits a hadith that goes against his own bid'ah, this is a good reason to think he's saying the truth, because there's no interest involved. Wallahu ta'ala alam. I think this is a very good argument, by the way.
No doubt, no doubt.
And you know what's ironic as well? Historians, I'm not talking about Muslim historians, I'm talking about Western historians and Orientalists like Matsky and other names, famous names. They have no problem accepting the hadith of the Sahaba as historical reports. It's not just a Sunni theological thing. These are primary eyewitness testimonies. Every single historian will consider them reliable as long as certain criteria are met, which are definitely met in the criteria of a Sahih hadith. And so, they end up rejecting these ahadith. Why? For theological reasons. They have no good historical reasons to reject the hadith. They have no good, practical arguments. They say, oh, we believe they were kuffar and we don't accept their hadith, which is nonsense. It's not an argument.
It's the natural progression, or it's the natural position to hold due to these same companions not accepting Ali as their first Khalifa. Now, I just want to point to their, I want to show if they think that Adaalat al-Sahaabah is an absurd point of view, let's take a look at their point of view and see how absurd that is. You see, it seems like there's no neutral position. Nobody says that the Sahaba are, we don't know anything about the Sahaba. It's either it's either positive or negative. Ahl Sunnah see them in a positive light, the Shia see them in a negative light. To them, they are fil asl fasaqa. Fil asl, they are murtadeen. And in our view, fil asl, the Sahaba udud. Now, what does the Quran support? Of course, as we all know, and as we've been discussing from the beginning of this discussion, is that the Quran supports the Sunni point of view.
Akhi, you mentioned something very beautiful, subhanAllah. When I left Shiism, there was a book around later. Maybe it was older than at the time when I left Shiism, 2003. But in either case, that book was called, in English you can call it, How I Gained the Sahaba, I Did Not Lose the Ahl Bayt, something like that.
Yeah. هذا علي القضيبي.
Yeah, Bahraini ex-Shia who became Sunni.
Yeah.
I think it's even on al-Ashab, maybe translated in English. I don't know. The beautiful thing is, when I used to be Shi'i, all those attacks on the Sahaba, what I finally realized is that all they do is to find faults of Sahaba, to portray the Sahaba in general as an evil entity. And anything good is just, the minority, the few who were with Ali. But the asl is that they're bad and evil. That's why some Shias, you know, they object. Say, no, we do believe in good Sahaba. There were some good Sahaba. You know, the narrations, as you know, state that only a handful. Some narrations state 3, some 7. Some are very generous, a handful. Some can count 40 Sahaba who did not apostate. In any case, the reality is, and this is why, inshallah, in the future, when I make lectures and from articles from al-Ashab, you know, this Bahraini organization, is very beautiful about many extras and about, you know, articles about Sahaba, about people who wrote, who left Shiism. If anybody studies the Quran alone, he will understand that the asl, the basis, is that the Sahaba are good and worthy of being followed. We mentioned the verse, role model, not to be compared with the evil companions of other prophets. You know, they always love to mention, I don't know, the wives of Nuh or Lut or the companions of Fulan. We are talking about the companions of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You're the best companions, you're the best one. Even his uncles, most of them become Muslims. So the Quranic perception of Sahaba is positive. We don't deny that they have been criticized, but it's their jahl, it's the ignorance of them when they mention, oh, Aisha and Hafsa are criticized in this verse. Yeah, in the very verse, the Prophet ﷺ is criticized as well, and many other verses as well. It doesn't mean he's not our Prophet anymore, ﷺ. He's not the best of all. He did not deliver his message. He's not ma'soom. Of course he is. But with that, even with all of that, Allah here and there criticizes the Prophet ﷺ. It shows his truthfulness, because somebody who would be a con artist would never criticize himself. They don't know the Quran. They are not familiar with the Quran. If they knew the Quran, they wouldn't bring up this shubuhat that, yeah, Quran talks about here about the mistake of the Sahaba. There, this verse is about the Sahaba raised their voice in front of the Prophet. We know, but that doesn't change the asl, which the asl is they are superior. Those who migrated and spent on the way of Allah, the first and foremost, where are they? And where's Taqi and Naqi? These people have taught the 8th, 9th, 10th Imam, some of them who have reached the rank of Imam at the age of 7, like the Dalai Lama, and gave them positions higher than Khalilullah Ibrahim, the idol and Jesus Christ, the Messiah. This is the problem we have with the sect. The ghulu, the extremism of the Imam. If it was love of Ahlul Bayt and taking the narrations, we have both. We have love of Ahlul Bayt in our hearts, and we have narrations. We have Ali's narrations in our book. We have Ibn Abbas narration in our books, even if they don't accept Aisha's Ahlul Bayt. Ali ibn Abi Talib, we have hundreds of narrations. We have our own Ali. We don't want their Ali. We don't want the Ali of Al-Kaf. Our issue with them is not Ahlul Bayt and love of Ahlul Bayt.
You know,
the extremism and the nice attribute.
I think an important point needs to be brought up as well. Usually when we're in a discussion, they'll always say, oh, this is from your source, so we're not going to accept it, and you're not going to accept our sources. However, I think this is a very shallow way of looking at things. I mean, in reality is, which source is the more accurate representation of the Prophet's life? You know, they admitted
it's the only representation.
Of course, I definitely agree. I mean, that's besides the point that they have very little hadith attributed to the Prophet in their books.
You look at, for example, the way we give da'wah in Al-Sunnah and the way they give da'wah. For example, this brother Imran bin Mansour, may Allah reward him and bless him. He's got a series called Let the Sunnah Go Forth, where he makes like 30-second clips explaining the Sunnah of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Yeah. And I wondered, like, have we ever seen the Shias do something like this before? Ever? Do they ever? I mean, do we see them make, for example, a series explaining what the Sunnah of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is? We don't.
Yeah. And you know, the thing is, just to get back to my point, sorry to interrupt.
Sorry,
which book is, or which sources are the accurate depiction of the Prophet? It's not just us versus you. We go back, we look at indicators. Ya akhi, they admit their books are a mess. Al-Tusi, author of Tahdib al-Ahkam, in the introduction, what does he say? He says, it's apparent that there are so many contradictions in our reports to the extent that there is not a report, except that there is another report that contradicts it. And we cannot take them all into account unless we consider some to be merely a result of taqiyya. And so he authored his book, Tathib al-Ahkam. One of the reasons is because their hadith is a mess. They're not, there's not a uniform narrative they have. There's a bunch of contradictions. And, their later scholars, like al-Hurr al-Amili, at the end of Wasa'il Shia, his famous book on Ahkam and hadith, he says, if we're going to apply the hadith standard, even the Shia themselves have appointed, which is that the transmitter must be an imami, a Shi'i, adl, Dabit, he has good retention of the reports, and that the whole isnad should be connected and only Shias. He said if we're going to apply the standard on our books, you would have nothing, because we find our scholars transmitting a hadith through kuffar, through mubtadi'ah, through waqifiyya, and through a bunch of other deviants. And so even they admit they do not have a hadith according to the authentic standard. It's very rare. And so with that point aside, they have very little corroborations. It's very rare to find a mutaba'a in hadith. What is a mutaba'a? A mutaba'a is when another narrator reports the same hadith through his sheikh of the other narrator. They don't have this. We have thousands of examples. We accept the hadith of a Shia. You have famous hadith transmitters like Ali ibn al-Ja'd. Who is Ali ibn al-Ja'd? He is the sheikh of Imam Muslim. He was a Shi'i. And al-Dhahabi mentions this in his tarjama, in his biography, in Siyar Alam al-Nubala. We have Shia in, ironically, Abdul Malik ibn A'yan, the brother of Zurara. He is a thiqa transmitter. Some of his ahadith are in Sahih Muslim. He has ahadith in our books. We have no problem accepting the transmission of anyone as long as they're reliable and trustworthy. They, on the other hand, they're biased. Their definition of sahih excludes anyone that's not an imami. And we have, and this is a question I asked them. Okay, let's say you consider the Sahaba a kuffar, all kuffar. طيب, would you accept the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt in our books? We have ahadith to Ali, to Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas transmits like a fifth of our sunnah, bro. Ibn Abbas. Ja'far al-Sadiq is in our books as well. Some ahadith attribute to Ali ibn Musa al-Rida. Muhammad al-Baqir, there are a lot of reports to him as well. Will you accept it if you do ta'an of the Sahaba? No. They're all contradictory. They reject it all because it's theological. It's not historical. They have no standard in judging these reports except that it's us versus you, and we'll not take whatever you have. And it's a mess.
A couple things I'd just like to mention really quickly in order to provide evidence for something I said. I just quoted that there's a Shia position that the Sahaba are generally bad people. By the way, is my sound fine? Because it's good. You're good. Okay. So there's a quick narration. There's a narration in the early pages of Hujjat Kashi, and this is authentic to the standards of Al-Khoi. Himran, who's the brother of Zurara, I think it's Himran Kasr al-Ha, right? Or am I pronouncing that wrong, Hassan?
Himran, I think it's with a dhamma, wallahu alam.
Okay, I usually seek Hassan's advice for Persian-sounding names. In any case, he says that he said to Abu Ja'far that we're such a small number that if we were to, if we were to eat a cow, we wouldn't finish it off. And then he says that. Oh, excuse me. Oh, carry on, guys.
طيب خير إن شاء الله. And so, another argument that is very important is to look at the issue historically. And in Western academia, there's a standard called the historical method. It's not biased Nasibi theology. No, this is, non-Muslim historians setting a methodology in which they can, scrutinize reports and analyze them. And they put several, criteria or indicators they rely on in determining which reports are good. And so, for example, they mention that the more independent sources that mention the report, the more reliable, it is. Because if they're independent, that means it's not just one person who made it up. Do the Shias have this? I know Farid has a lot of experience with Shia books. It's very rare to find the same report reported through another isnad. It's very rare. Even their scholars, Tusi mentions this. This is one thing. A second thing historians will take into account is that the age of the report. So if there's an incident that happened 100 years ago, they will consider the closer report, the one that came 50 years later, more reliable than the report that came 1,000 years later. Why? Because it's closer to the actual incident. There's less chance of mistakes happening. And this is also a thing we have in hadith. It's called ulu al-isnad. The less men there are in the isnad, the less the time gap, the more reliable the report is. طيب, you look at our reports. The first of our books, the Muwatta of Imam Malik, the books of Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, they were all authored in the middle 2nd century. And then we have Sahih Muslim, Sahih Bukhari, 3rd century, early 3rd century, Musnad al-Humaydi, Musnad al-Tayalisi. All of our books are very early 2nd century, and some are even early 3rd century. Sorry, let me correct that. Imam Malik and Abdullah ibn Mubarak's books are in the 2nd century, and then the rest, most of them are in the 3rd century, early 3rd century. طيب, you look at their books, there are 4 main reliable books. Al-Kafi died in the beginning of the 4th century. There's like a 170-year gap between Imam Malik and Al-Kulayni. You have Ibn Babawayh died around 380. Yani he's talking 100 years later. And then you have the biggest, mess is Tosi, who died year 460. So you have reports that came, 150 years after the incident. And then you have other reports that came 400 years later. Obviously, a historian, when looking at this, will give certain sources more weight. So it seems that even using the historical method, Sunni sources by all means trump, Shia sources. We satisfy all of these criteria, and inshallah, I'm working on a paper at the moment. When done, I'll outline all these arguments and actually give citations from Western scholars, even Orientalists who actually genuinely believed that Sunni sources were more historically accurate than Shia sources. But I'll leave that for another time, inshallah. Allah ta'ala alam.
Allah barak fik, akhi. Looking forward to it. Sorry about that. I'll get back to the narration I was quoting earlier. Imran said that he said to Abu Ja'far that we are such a small number. He's talking about the Shi'is at the time of al-Batil. He says, we are such a small number. If we were to gather around the goat, we wouldn't finish it. We wouldn't finish eating it. So al-Baqir says, how about I tell you about something that's more surprising than that? So Imran says, yes, please do. So al-Baqir said, the Muhajirun and the Ansar, they left, suggesting that they left Islam, except, and then he pointed 3 fingers with his hand. Okay, so this is authentic according to the standards of al-Khu'i. So subhanallah, this isn't just like some funky fringe opinion. This is an actual valid Shi'i opinion. They all became apostates except for this small bunch, which is why al-Qawmi in his tafsir, when discussing the verse with Sabiqul Awwalun, he says this is referring to al-Miqdad, Salman, and Abu Dhar. Because, it's problematic. You can't. By the way, there's no Ansar. These 3 are Muhajirin, they're not even Ansar. What about the Ansar? What? Say again, Hassan, I couldn't hear you.
What then the Ansar to these people?
Hey, أقول لك ما في, there's no Ansar. That's why Muhammad said it's like Al-Hassan and Hussein are Ansar.
No, I give you the answer, akhi. You know what their answer is?
Hey, please let me know.
Their answer is, this Shubayri and their likes that they learn from their kahana, from their priests, is that, well, our imams and in our madhab, after the ridda of the Sahaba, in the time of like Jamal and Siffin, people came back, raji'un, those who came back. Yani, look at this religion. Everything is ghulu with Ali bin Abi Talib. So to them, those who from the Sahaba fought on the side of Ali then, they were like initial murtaddeen, but then they came back to the religion. They classified them.
Hassan, I have an excellent point to make actually regarding this. People, even Sunnis, unfortunately, they really have a distorted understanding of what happened in this battle and how many people actually participated. People think, thousands of Sahaba fought on both sides. Do you know how many actually fought, as our scholars say, in the Battle of Jamal from both sides?
A handful, yes, from Sahaba. Yeah.
Yani Ibn Taymiyyah says something around, less than 70 of the companions of the Prophet were aslan from both sides. And so they take this and they generalize this ruling over 140,000 people. It's a mess. You cannot do that. Yani, this is just a point I wanted to point out.
Yeah. Guess what, guys? Right now, guess what is right now on Titan's TV?
Muawiyah, they're talking about Muawiyah, isn't it? In it.
Muawiyah Miskeen.
Muawiyah Miskin, that's the title, Muawiyah Miskin.
They like that word. They learned it from me. They're using it now. Muawiyah Miskeen. Masakin, they don't even know that word is not that negative. They're Muawiyah Miskeen. As if Muawiyah, he made some. The Sahaba is really righteous. Allah Musta'an. See, that's their religion.
Fam, king.
Their religion, and this is wallahi one of my niyyah, brothers, and those who are watching, one of my intentions is to make one time a lecture about the asl of Islam, the asl of the da'wah of Ahlul Sunnah. The da'wah, the call of Ahlul Sunnah is the call to Tawheed, the call of the Anbiya. They cite from you left, right, and center verses about how Allah sent to every nation a messenger to call to what? To La ilaha illallah. So the da'wah of Ahlul Sunnah is always La ilaha illallah. Follow the idol breaker Ibrahim. He's an uswa. He's an example, even from Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that's Ahlul Sunnah. That's the call. That is why in Hyde Park Speakers Corner around the world, it is Ahlul Sunnah who spreads Tawheed, talks always about Tawheed, is busy with making da'wah to non-Muslims. However, on the other side, what is the main da'wah of the Rafida? What is the main da'wah of the Imamiyya? It is always controversial, sectarian stuff, talking about Muawiyah, even when they say, even when they call like this Hassan al-Qadri, and he tries to copy a lot, this Yasser al-Khabib in his way and talking, and even in his muqaddama, all these khurafat, that are not from the Sunnah. Anyway, what is their call? They openly say, our call is to tashayya. Yeah? But they often don't even use the word Islam, alhamdulillah. They say, our call is to, of course they claim that tashayya is Islam, but alhamdulillah, and even the tongues, Allah made it, that they often say, our call is to Shiism, tashayya, Abu Bakr this, Umar that, and that is why, rightfully, alhamdulillah, they are not known for Tawheed. They are known for anything but Tawheed. They are known for anything but Sunnah. They are known for anything but Istiqamah. They are known for anything but orthodoxy and authentic Islam. Because even people have realized it, our laymen have realized it, even non-Muslims have realized it. When they said, hey, when these people, ever since they appeared on Hyde Park Speakers Corner, or generally their online da'wah, it's mostly, they try to confuse laymen Sunnis. They try to, the whole concept is sectarian. Whereas Ahlul Sunnah, alhamdulillah, till today, we are doing this because obviously we believe that's fard kifaya. Somebody has to do it in the English language, and we do that. Defending, and that's our right to do so, defending the beliefs of Ahlul Sunnah, defending the Sahaba, but defending the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam from these people, all the lies that have been attributed to them. And look at their da'wah. And how much, a plethora, inshallah, how much narrations in the tafsir I can pull out to show that the ghulu, that they have everything, they put everything upside down. Whereas the foundation of Islam is the call to Tawheed, La ilaha illallah, call of the Prophets. In their books you see attributed to al-Baqir and whatnot, that Islam is based upon 5, and wilayah is the most important thing. Allah has sent every prophet with the wilayah of Ali bin Abi Talib. Every prophet was tested with the wilayah of Ali bin Abi Talib, from Musa to Isa to Ibrahim to Yunus.
Hassan, on that point, subhanAllah, it reminds me of an argument. They mentioned this, every prophet was tested on the wilayah of Ali ibn Abi Talib. But isn't it ironic that you have no reference to this in any shape or form in the Torah we have today and in the Injil? Yeah, it's muharraf, but you can get general ideas. Why would they have to eliminate this? Are the Jews nawasib as well? Are the Christians nawasib? They hate Ali too?
Can one make ijtihad in haram? No, it's a rhetorical question.
Of course not. It's not from Allah, of course not. But this is what has to get to the masses. When the masses understand that, hey, hold on a second. Now I understand where all this ghulu
comes from. Now I understand where all this Quburiya, grave veneration, Imam veneration,
Shrine
veneration, calling upon Imams, sacrificing for Imams, slaughter, taking oaths in the name of the Imams, doing nothing in the name of Imams, all these khurafat and bid'at, wailing as a form of ritual worship, all these things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family came to eradicate. All these khurafat and bid'at and dalalat, this madhab has revived, and the evil plot is here, revived under the name, in the name of the Ahlul Bayt. That's the evil plot. This is why I expect that somebody who has ghayra for Islam and for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and for Ahlul Bayt alayhim assalam and the Sahaba, that here the ghayra of the Muslim should be, wait a second, all these lies and exaggerations and saint worship, Imam worship, calling upon Imams, shrine veneration, attacking the Sahaba, all of this is done in the name of Islam and in the name of Ahlul Bayt.
It is
wajib alayna. It is compulsory upon us, upon anybody who has the knowledge.
Hassan, please get closer to the mic. Your voice is kind of far away.
It's compulsory upon anybody to defend. And again, you see sometimes the excuses they bring. Oh, this guy is a bit hateful. This guy is this. This guy is that.
A bit closer.
We are opponents in belief, of course. Of course, we will have stark, differences, of course. But the thing is, this can't be used, as I said, remember, I always repeat it, if we wanted to look for excuses, then we could say that we don't want to debate with any of the Shias, because the scholars make takfir of the majority of the Sahaba, and so on. So we don't use these excuses. We're still ready to debate them, still ready to discuss these things. And I believe it's our God-given right. It's our God-given right to defend the Sahaba. We don't, subhanAllah, even TrovaShia.net, most of the articles of TrovaShia.net are not even hujumi. They are not even like...
Hassan, your voice isn't that clear.
I said most of the articles of TrovaShia.net are not even hujumi. They're not even offensive and attacking. It's mostly in defense. Right? It's here and there you have articles where we lash out. Right? There's a lot of things, a lot of work that needs to be done. We turn the tables.
Yeah,
you're right. It's very defensive.
I think we're getting near the end, are we not?
Yeah. Before wrapping up, I think we should give the chance to some of the folks live on the chat to ask a few questions. If they'd like to do that, it feels like we're cheating them if we don't give them that chance.
Sure. Down.
Very, very briefly, I'd also like to mention very briefly that there are, of course, several verses in the Quran that praise the Sahaba, not just one, not just the only one that we're discussing today. There's a bunch. But however, Al-Khatib Baghdadi says something really beautiful that I'd like to emphasize, which is that even if there were no verses in the Quran, even if there were no narrations from the Prophet ﷺ praising the Sahaba, we would still believe in the Adala of the Sahaba due to their actions. How do we know of the Adala of random narrators? To the Shi'i, the assumption is you know by opening Kitab Rijal al-Tusi and finding the word thiqa. That's not the way. The original method, the original method of finding out if someone is a thiqa or not is by seeing their actions, by seeing how they pray, by seeing what they've done for Islam. And this is what the Sahaba excelled at. No one can do for Islam what the Sahaba did. And that is why they are above the level of thiqat. It's just something I just want to point out. So through the aql, before even saying, we don't even need to say Quran and Sunnah. From the aql, we know that the Sahaba were udul.
Yeah, and you know what's actually an interesting point? Oh, it's good that I just remembered this. Are you hearing me, Farid?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. They will tell you, oh, there's no tawfiq of Umar al-Khattab. They'll just bring that up as an argument. Or Abu Hurairah, or Aisha.
Right.
طيب, the question is, Habibi, Where is this hypothetical tawthiq of Ali, al-Hasan, al-Hussein, and Ja'far, and Muhammad al-Baqir, or Ali ibn al-Hussein? Where is it? What are you looking for? Someone to call him a thiqa in a book? Who has the authority, first of all, to give tawthiq to the Sahaba and Ahl al-Bayt? Yani it's a double standard they apply as well. Right?
That's true. Imagine that. Imagine Yahya bin Ma'in saying, yeah, Umar Saduq.
Yeah, and maybe
Just imagine that.
You know, oh yeah, Ali ibn Abi Talib, maybe he's a صدوق أقرب إلى الثقة يعني. It's a mess. You cannot have that double standard. You guys also don't have tawthiq of your Ahl al-Bayt. What are they going to do? They're going to appeal to the weak ahadith they have, which state that their imams are, you know, infallible and that they have absolute knowledge, you know, eternal knowledge.
Right.
Well, I think there's several objections that need to be made. First of all, this is a theological claim, and it's not a historical one. And we're debating, this is a historical debate, right? We're talking historicity-wise. Were these people, do we have good reasons to believe they were trustworthy or not? They will bring this contested theological notion that's even contested within their own school. I mean, it's not a majority opinion, but, you know, Ibn Babawayh and his sheikh, Muhammad bin al-Hasan, they used to believe that, you know, negating for, you know, what's it called? What's the word? Negating sahu, forgetfulness, negating forgetfulness.
I need to leave now, brothers, inshallah. I need to leave, inshallah. Assalamu
alaikum.
You know, even some Shia scholars themselves held the opinion that negating forgetfulness from the Imams and the Prophet was ghulu, extremism. Right. And so you cannot bring a contested theological claim to a historical debate. So the conclusion is, if you're going to claim there's no tawthiq of the Sahaba, then the logical, you know, conclusion that will follow is that there's no tawthiq of Ahl al-Bayt as well. And unless they can have, you know, valid proof for this, I think the point still stands. Wallahu
alam. It doesn't seem like we have any questions, so I guess we could wrap it up. And any closing thoughts?
La wallah, I think it was okay. Alhamdulillah, I have nothing else to say. But inshallah, we can talk about it later. Allah ta'ala.
One point I forgot to mention, alhamdulillah, it just came to me. When we were discussing about the exceptions, we said that if a Sahabi, you know, let's say, for example, this Sahabi, we do believe is a fasiq or something like that. If he was an exception, let's say Abdurrahman bin Udais al-Balawi did kill Uthman by hand, you know, with his own hands, and that he was a Sahabi. How would we deal with that? Yes, that would be an exception, and the Sahaba are still udul. The reason we would say that, but it's a hypothetical situation, of course.
Yeah.
The reason we would say that is because this is how the Sunnis and the Shias look at al-tawthiqat al-amma. That's how we look at general claims of trustworthiness. So, for example, al-Khoi believes that the narrators of Tafsir al-Qummi are all reliable, because in the beginning and the introduction to Tafsir al-Qummi, there's a statement, there's a general statement about the reliability of the narrators of the book. Now, when Khoi finds a narrator who has been declared as weak by another scholar, he would say, okay, there's a difference of opinion about this guy, so we're gonna, you know, cast him off to the side. However, he's an exception, and the rest of the narrators of this book are still reliable. And that's what Shias have always been doing. That's what they've always done with their exceptions, and that's what Sunnis have always done with their exceptions. So this argument that Sunnis cannot have exceptions when it comes to Adaalat Sahaba, if we hypothetically said that there were some Sahaba who weren't udul, then that's the simple response. It's just seen as a specific exception that doesn't hurt the general rule. Yeah. And the general rule is upheld by the Quran and the Sunnah, and as I mentioned previously, just recently, through the Aql.
You know, the thing is, Abu Abdullah, the question that needs to be asked is, okay, someone killed a Muslim wrongfully throughout his life.
Mm-hmm.
That X repented later in his life and became a pious person.
Right.
person, يعني خلاص, is he, forever, can never be a adl?
Not
Obviously not.
necessarily.
Yeah, so that's the point. Yani, first of all, according to the muhaddithin, Adala, as I said earlier, is someone whose general ta'ah, whose general act of worship and benevolence is more than his ma'siyah, more than his sins.
Right.
So doing a major sin, even someone doing a major sin at a certain point, that does not automatically exclude him from being adil. If he repented after that immediately, yani nothing, his reports are still accepted, right? You have Sahaba who, let's say, for example, a Sahabi that was stoned for doing zina, right? طيب, he did a major sin. The guy repented and he went to the Prophet ﷺ. He admitted himself. And the Prophet, by the way, this is an irrelevant point, but it shows that how trustworthy they were. The guy even admitted something against himself and he knew he was going to get killed. But that's a side point. So he was killed. He did a major sin, agreeably. That does not mean he's not a adil. In fact, I would accept any report this Sahabi has to transmit. You see what I'm saying? Because this has nothing to do with his adala. If he did something, a small mistake or a big mistake, and he repented from it, his adala is not immediately trashed. Hence why I say they strawman our positions when they define our adala according to their own terms.
That makes sense. Makes sense, akhi. A brother asks on the chat, I think it's a brother, Wallahu a'lam, what is the Shi'i view on why would Ali help the first three caliphs? Would you want to answer that one?
Sure. I'll say something and maybe you can add as well if I miss any points.
Right.
First of all, they don't necessarily believe Ali helped them. What they'll say is, oh, Ali did not go against them. He did not object to them. He did not, show that he had a problem with it. Why? For the sake of the ummah, for the greater good. It was taqiyya, basically. There's a greater interest in his mind regarding these issues. I don't think they believe that Ali helped Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman. Obviously, in our sources, we have authentic hadith and reports that most historians, even non-Muslims, will accept, that show that Ali had no problem with the first three caliphs in reality. But nevertheless, according to Shia theology, I believe they say it was merely out of taqiyya and there was a greater maslaha or interest that Ali was seeking by not opposing them. What do you think, Farid?
Yeah, generally this view of a greater maslahah is what they mention, which is of course the mother of all contradictions, because isn't the greatest maslahah following the infallible Imam? So.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And they also fall into a contradiction. Why? They will find any excuse for Ali ibn Abi Talib. Like, why can't you say, well, Abu Bakr saw that the greater maslaha was to do so and so? The maslaha.
Would you mind repeating that one?
Yeah. So they say Ali ibn Abi Talib did things that were apparently wrong, right? He did not seek his imama, which is a divine, command from Allah. Yeah. Ali has no say in it. If Ali did not pursue it because there was a greater interest, right? That's what they believe. Right. Can't we say the same thing about Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman? There was a greater interest they saw, and they did their own ijtihad, and it could be wrong, but it's the interest of the ummah. These arguments are nonsensical. They're not historical arguments. Again, they're theological assertions and cop-outs. Cop-outs to get out, to be able to run away, run around the bush. Wallahu a'lam.
Yeah. It seems like they've always had an issue with the positions and the roles and the reactions of the imams to the caliphs of their times. Sometimes it would be positive, sometimes it would be negative, and they would always argue that it depends on the circumstances. However, the circumstances aren't always really that different. That's a lengthy topic, to be honest. Maybe we should cover that some other time, inshallah.
Inshallah. Any other questions?
I don't know.
طيب, I think we can wrap it up then and see what we can do next time, inshallah.
Inshallah. All right.
You want to give a conclusion, Farid?
No, I'm good.
All right, Jazakumullah khairan for watching. I hope you all benefited.
Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. You know the deal.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, go kalam. Inshallah, we hope you all benefited, and stay in touch to see if we have any further updates and plans. Inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.